Alright, so your art isn't improving, and that's totally fine because we're all artists and we're all going to get to that point where we don't feel like our art is improving. But in order to start improving, you do have to stop these 3 things. And so if you do stop these 3 things, you have a higher chance of improving your art. But before we get into the 3 things that are stopping you from improving your art, I just wanted to talk about why you would even want to improve your art in the first place. Improving your art comes with many benefits, and one being that your art style will improve and develop over time. And while you may not realize it at first, while your art style starts to improve, people start to recognize your art style more and know who drew it exactly when they look at the art. And I do think the more you improve, the more you will feel better about your art, and you will like your art way more than you did when you were not improving, if that makes sense. Art improvement feels so good to see, but when you're not seeing it, it feels really upsetting, and it really makes you lose motivation when you are not seeing it improve. So if you're experiencing that right now, here are the 3 big reasons on why you are not improving your art, and along with some tips and tricks on how to improve it. So the first big reason is because you are not studying. So this is honestly a big mistake. You will not learn anything new if you don't study, and there's pretty much a lot of stuff to study about art, so you shouldn't try to avoid studying it. And this happens to be a huge mistake that I encountered many times. I thought I knew a lot about art and I didn't have to study anything, so the result did end up being in me not seeing a change in my art. I did not see any improvement or disimprovement. Nothing changed. I do know how challenging art can be, but when you just don't study, it kind of gets harder from there because you don't have much knowledge about things like how to draw a hand or where to place the fingers on the palm. I know studying is not fun at all and it is just so boring, but please do not try to avoid it. Studying elements in art definitely improves your art by a lot because you're learning things and you're getting help. So if you're not learning things and getting help, you're never going to get it. And if you were drawing a piece that was a redraw of another piece and you looked at both and you didn't really improve at the anatomy or the colors or where you even place stuff like the shadows and the highlights, then you trying to avoid studying and not even trying to do it might simply just be a big reason on why you're not improving your art. Another common mistake that you're probably doing that is also related to lack of studying is not drawing guidelines when drawing. Guidelines are a must when drawing anything, and along with not studying not drawing guidelines just makes art harder since things will look very off. I also used to do this, and I'm just gonna say that my art did not improve much. So if you don't draw guidelines, please do, because your art will improve for the better and you will not regret it. So now I am done with the first reason on why your art is probably not improving. And so this second reason and the second mistake is definitely the most commonest one out there, and it is the fact that you are stressing your art way too much. You have probably stressed over your art many times with not even realizing it, and I'm gonna give you some examples. So you may have been comparing your art to other people's art, along with rushing the process and expecting all of your art pieces to be some type of perfection. This can easily slow the process down of improving or just stop it in general, because if you're thinking bad about your art will not progress and get better. And as long as you're practicing, you will improve within every piece, but you cannot expect some type of big improvement after every single artwork that you create, because that is not possible, and I don't think that has happened before. So I think with art or just anything in general, that when tracking your progress down, you shouldn't talk about how much you have left, and instead you should talk about how much you have accomplished so far and what goals that you have surpassed. So an example of this would be, instead of saying that I have like around, I don't know, let's say 15 years of improvement in my art and that I haven't really got anywhere, instead you should just say that I have been doing art for a year and I have improved a lot since when I first tried. Because if you have that kind of positive mindset, you will think more positively about your art, which makes your art improve. But if you continue to convey a negative feeling about your art, you will just not like your art, and then you will fall into something called art burnout, which I'm sure we all know what it is, and you will start to not even just not like your art, but just hate it, and then you're going to want to quit your art, and that's obviously what no one wants. So please think positive. So the last and final reason why your art is probably not improving is because you are not letting yourself explore and play around with your art. Picture this: you are drawing with the same type of materials and you are drawing the same thing, and you are not practicing your weak points and weak spots in art. You should not expect any improvement if you are stuck doing the same things over and over again. You know, the definition of insanity means to do the same thing and expect a different result every time. I mean, if you're doing the same thing, you should expect the same result every time and not anything different. So taking this back to art terms, you should not repeat doing the same thing, drawing the same thing, and not practicing and expect to improve your art, because, you know, being honest, you will not. So me back then, when I was trying my best to improve my art and make my art better, I was also doing this. I only drew with color pencils. I did not practice at all, and I had suffered from technically everything I said. So I I can definitely say from experience to do this, because when art can feel boring, there's something you can change, but not everyone knows that this is a big factor and something that you can definitely change. If you stick to one thing, it'd be more than easy to become bored and not excel so much in your art. So just remember to refresh your brain and explore things and elements in art, so that way it becomes a challenge to get bored, and you will easily increase the chance of your art improving. So if you do any of these mistakes, I will be talking about how to fix them and how to stop doing them for good, and along with what to do instead. So as a recap, the first thing that I stated that you were probably doing that was wrong was not studying. In order to fix this, you need to study more, and I'm going to give you some examples on what to study. A few things you can study are color theory, anatomy, how clothing folds work, drawing realism faces, composition, drawing backgrounds, and how light sources work. Now there's a ton of other things you can study, but those are just a few select. You see a lot of people trying to blame that the fact that their art style is stylized, so they don't want to add these stuff. But this helps a lot no matter what art style you have. You can have a super cartoony one, and these stuff still applies. So never use excuses to try and avoid this, or your art will not improve. So the second mistake that I went over that you're probably doing that is ruining your art from improving was that you were stressing over way too much. So not stressing over your art can sometimes be hard, especially when you're looking to reach some type of perfection. So in order not to stress, I just say try and not look at your art too closely and have fun with it. Do not rush the process, because improvement will become one day, and sometimes it's quicker for other people. But just because they get it quicker does not mean you have to compare yourself to them. And just remember to overall have fun along your art journey. So the last mistake that you were probably doing that's stopping you from improving your art was the fact that you were not exploring. So I think you already know what to do here. Obviously you have to explore, and by this I mean try a different art style, try a different art medium, try even shade something different. It doesn't matter too much on what you change, but as long as you change something, you never know if it can make your art improve. So with me myself on this drawing, I drew it around 6 months ago, and I was recreating it, and if you were on my channel around then, you would have seen it a lot. And so these things I did, but I stopped them, and then my art improved. So most likely the same thing will happen to you. So if you do any of the mistakes in the video, hopefully you can stop and improve your art for the better.